So as we're entering to the Yom Tov, the holiday of Sukkot, if you think a little bit about in terms of the progression of the Yom Tov, moving from Rosh Hashanah into Yom Kippur, then finally into Sukkot. So Rosh Hashanah, we know that Yom Kippur is a time, Yom Chasanos is Matan Torah, the day of the Chasan, the day of the wedding day, is Matan Torah. The Gemara tells us, and the Tainus, and Rashi writes, that is Aluchas Shnias, the second tablets, which means that Yom Kippur celebrates the time of wedding, the time of entering into a wedding. And Kafalim Harkigigas, the idea that the mountain was suspended over their head, is like the process of a chuppah, of a canopy, the entering into a marriage. So by continuation, to expand on this idea, so Rosh Hashanah is a time of the Tanoim. Rosh Hashanah is a time of we'll call it the engagement period. Before Rosh Hashanah comes the month of Elul. Elul is a time, according to Sefer Yetzirah, is Mazel Psula, has to do with Virgo. So we're entering into a pure state. And then finally Rosh Hashanah comes. And on Rosh Hashanah is the Tanoim, is a time of engagement. What is a time of engagement? A time of engagement is, for example, two people finally fall in love, and they've decided they're going to live together, and they become engaged to each other. So when they get engaged, there's a lot of excitement, there's a lot of commitment, but it's not a commitment in terms of details. It's not exactly where exactly are we going to live and what's the business that we're going to have and how are we going to support ourselves financially. That was done maybe before, but during the time of the engagement, there's a general, what we'll call a or makiv, a general surrounding light that carries the engagement into its fruition. And the time of engagement is a time of passion, a time of excitement. And this is what we do on Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah, we come to Hashem, we come to the Master of the Universe, the Rebirth, and we say, Hashem, this year, I want to be yours. This year, I want to be with you. I want to be married to you. I want to commit my life to a higher purpose, to a higher order. I want to live my life deeply, spiritually, and connected to you. And I want my life to be a higher life. And there's not about the details and what exactly am I going to do. Just a general commitment, makifim, a general commitment on the idea of the surrounding light, so to speak. And therefore, Rosh Hashanah, we blow the shofar. The shofar creates through the shofar we have 100 blasts of the shofar, and these 100 blasts of the shofar creates like a vapor, a moisture, something that surrounds us, and a cocoon of holiness, of spirituality, of Or Makifim. Then comes Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is a time that we say not only do we want to be engaged with you, but now we want to get married. Yom Chasanos is Matan Torah. That this day, in Yom Kippur, we say, Hashem, now I want to get married to you, and I want to have an intimate relationship with you. I want to enter into the Holy of Holies and the Kodesh HaKadoshim, I want to enter the place that I'm completely intimate with you. And in that place of total commitment, and not only the commitment of the engagement, the commitment that I'm going to live my life in your presence and to be with you constantly and to live in a marriage with you, we enter into the state of Yom Kippur, and we put the highest level of the service of Yom Kippur is the Avodas HaKtoros, the service of the Ktoros, of the incense that was burnt, that was created in the Holy of Holies. Then comes Sukkot. And what is Sukkot? Sukkot is we celebrate for 7 days. The celebration of 7 days corresponds to the 7 days of Sheva Brachos, the 7 days of blessings, the 7 days of joy that follow the marriage. And the sequence is like this: on Rosh Hashanah, we create Or Makifim, which is through the shofar. On Yom Kippur, we create Or Makifim, the surrounding vapor and aspiration through the avodah of Ktoros, the inner work of the Ktoros and the incense, which just means that we go into the Holy of Holies, and through entering into the Holy of Holies. Now, today that we don't have a Holy of Holies, we enter into the inner space, the deepest space that we are, and through that we bring avodah of Ktoros. So the Zohar says that through this avodah of Ktoros, through the service of the Ktoros of the incense, the Ktoros itself, the cloud, the Anan that fills up, the cloud that fills up the Holy of Holies, that rises up, and that eventually becomes the Anani HaKavod, becomes the clouds of glory. And the Anani HaKavod is the Sukkah that we sit in Sukkot. So what creates the schach, the covering of the Sukkah, is actually the service that we do in the Holy of Holies, and the Kohen Gadol did in the Holy of Holies in the service of Avodas HaKtoros. So the Ktoros, like the Mitzvah explains this piece of Zohar, that the Ktoros creates the Anani HaKavod, the incense creates the clouds of glory, and then we get to sit in the clouds of glory in Sukkot. And the Arizal says in Sharas Kavanos, the Arizal teaches that the 100 blasts that we blow on shofar corresponds to the word, the 100 corresponds to the word schach, which is the covering of the sukkah, is numerically 100. So through the service, through the hard work that we create, through the commitment, the t'nayim, the commitment, the desire to say, I'm going to live my life this way. I commit myself to live this way. And then on Yom Kippur, we say we're actually going to live that. Through the 100 blasts of the shofar becomes the schach. Through the avodah ketores, through the service of the ketores, that becomes the schach. And then when we come to Sukkot, we actually get to sit. Kishem Shemayim Chol Al Chagiga Al Sukkah. This idea that the Shem Shemayim, the name of Hashem, rests in the Sukkah. We get to enter into the divine embrace. We get to sit in the Ananakava, in the clouds of glory that were created through our ketores and through our blowing of the shofar. And this is what it means. That Smoil Tachas Reishi Minut Avacheni, this idea of the left hand, which is the idea of judgment and seriousness in a somber time, which occurs during the time of Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, which is generally a makif, a very surrounding, very general commitment. And then Sukkot comes along and we say that now we're ready to sit in the divine space. We're ready to enter into the Sukkah. We're ready to celebrate for 7 days, much like within a marriage. And after marriage, we say, okay, now I'm going to just celebrate and be in your presence. I have nowhere to do. I have nowhere to go. I have nowhere to be. I just want to be with you for 7 days to celebrate, to have guests and to feast and to have heavenly guests and shpizin, the chassidish shpizin, to have all these guests and to fill our home with our space of the sukkah in a festive place. Because now I'm sitting with the presence of Hashem, and now I'm saying I'm going to celebrate for 7 days to be with you, Hashem. And therefore, the idea of Yemina Tibacheni, the idea of the right hand gives a hug, that's the idea of the Sukkah. The Sukkah is when Hashem is giving us a hug. Like the Arizal explains that Yemina Tibacheni, the idea of the Sukkah is symbolic of the idea of a divine hug. We're entering in a divine space. And like the Chidah writes, that Sukkah, Sukkah is spelled with 3 letters, Samach Chaf Hey, that a Samach is a complete circular letter, a Chaf has three walls, and a Hey has 2 and a little bit. Those correspond to the halachic requirements of what the definition of a sukkah is. A sukkah, in its bare minimum, is 2 walls and a little bit. Like the third wall would be the beginning of the third wall, and that extends. That's like the letter Hey. Then you have a more kosher sukkah, which has 3 walls, which is like a chaf. And then you have a total sukkah, which has all 4 walls, which is like the letter Samach. And those also correspond to different levels of hugging. You know, you can give somebody a hug, and you just give them a little bit of hug, like a small hug. Then you can give them a little bit a bigger hug, and then you give them an entire embrace. You put your hands around the other person. That's a full hug. That's the highest level of sukkah. We feel completely embraced in this divine space, and that's the idea of the sukkah. The sukkah, it's brought down in the Ari, it's brought down in the Aruch HaShulchan, it's brought down in many places. That the idea of sukkah is numerically also 91. Which corresponds to the name Hashem Havaya, Hashem Adonai, the higher level of transcendence, the higher level of presence, which we're entering fully into that place. So in sequence, the way it works is Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur is a very general makifim. There's a general understanding that this year I'm going to live in a committed life. I'm going to be connected with you, and I want to be connected with you. I want to be present with you. And then Yom Kippur comes along and we actually get married. And now Hashem says, okay, now that we're married, let's spend some time together. So what we do in the sukkah is we just spend time together. We eat, we celebrate, we eat, we drink, we sleep, we celebrate. We're just we're just being in the presence of of Hashem. We're in the presence of the Creator, and we're basking in that presence. And there's nothing to do, nothing to be. Just that brings tremendous amount of joy, because now we're bringing down the Or Makif Mabina, the surrounding light that was created, that was generated through our own inner work that was done through Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. Now we're drawing down that light into a more pnimi. We have now a vessel. The vessel is the sukkah itself, and even the stronger vessel will be the lulav and Esther, which means you're drawing it all the way down, all the way into your heart, like an antenna, and you're drawing down this energy, this koyach that you created in the Or Makifim on Rosh Hashanah Kippur, and then you're drawing it all down. And this is the idea of the work that we have to do on Sukkot, is to say, okay, now that we committed ourselves, and we commit ourselves not only to be engaged, but to be married HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to live in Hashem's presence, to live with a higher, deeper, and more meaningful, and a life that's committed to Torah and mitzvahs. Now that we do that, now he says, okay, now let's spend time together. Let's develop the details of how exactly this marriage is going to work. What are you going to do for me? What am I going to do for you? And that's a time of Sukkot that we have to celebrate in this divine space of embrace with Hashem.